Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana. And we're here today with special guest, Brad Englert, who's here to share with us his new book, Spheres of Influence: How to Create and Nurture Authentic Business Relationships. So are you looking to build authentic, mutually beneficial, and trusting relationships? Well, we're going to cover just that. Brad Englert is the founder of Brad Englert Advisory and is an author, advisor, and technologist. He worked for Accenture for 22 years and served the University of Texas at Austin for 8 years, including 7 years as the Chief Information Officer. Brad earned a Master's of Public Affairs degree from the University of Texas at Austin and a Bachelor's degree of Art in Social Sciences with honors and distinction. So let's welcome to the show, Brad Englert.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, what an honor it is to have you here and to talk about this book. And congratulations, I hear it is getting such great reviews.
Well, in addition to being an Amazon bestseller, it's number one hot new release.
Oh my goodness, congratulations. How exciting is that? So why don't we start from the beginning? What inspired you to write this book?
Well, I've been fortunate to have some very good mentors over the years. And then later in my career, I enjoyed mentoring others. And I just had a lot of stories from my 22 years at Accenture and 8 years at the University of Texas at Austin as the CIO, where I also was developing a team. And I still mentor 2 or 3 people every year, but I thought I could reach a wider audience by writing a book and help more people.
Well, I'm so glad that you did because while this book is centered around business relationships, I was so impressed because there's so much here that people can use in their daily lives.
Yes, 3 principles apply to all business relationships and all relationships, really. Understanding a person's goals and aspirations, setting and managing expectations, and genuinely caring about their success.
It seems like in today's atmosphere, that's something that really needs to be taught. So I'm glad that we're having this discussion. So you start chapter one straight off relationship with the boss. Why did you start there?
Because almost everybody has a boss, unless you're self-employed. And early in your career, you may be not knowing how to navigate that relationship, and just knowing that it's okay to ask your boss, what are their goals and aspirations, and how can you help them? Some people are scared to do that, or nervous, or don't know it's okay. And, I just want to let them know that most bosses welcome that type of discussion.
Well, I really liked in this chapter, you talk about how you had a boss who could not make decisions. And I would love for you to share that with our listeners.
Well, it, he didn't like to make a decision on the spot. So I learned what we've referred to. My technique is the Texas two-step. And so I would meet with him and say, "Hey, I don't want a decision today. I just want your input. Then we'll come back and discuss it later." And then a week later, I'd come back and ask for the decision. And that worked really well for him. And it actually helped me get his input before putting a proposal together.
So, what are some ways that we can not only help manage expectations with our supervisors, but also be good communicators?
I have a couple of phrases throughout the book, which one is your people are not mind readers, and you need to use your words. And as the boss, you need to use your words and let people know what you expect. And don't expect them to read your mind. And as a direct report, you need to not expect your boss to read your mind of what your goals and aspirations are. So it's all about creating a safe environment where you can have an authentic discussion about where you want to be in your life and how you can help each other. It's really a symbiotic relationship that you should be seeking.
So, when we're setting expectations, when do we start that and how do we start that?
Well, you start at the beginning. So let's just take an example. So I had a boss that was type A personality, everything rush, rush, rush. And she would call and everything sounded very urgent. And time I was trying to leave to take my wife to dinner and leave at a reasonable time. And the boss, she calls and said, I need a white paper. And it sounded like tremendously urgent. But I said, whoa. I literally said, whoa. When do you need this white paper? And she sputtered and said, well, I don't meet with a client for another 2 weeks. Well, it sounded like she needed it tomorrow. Um, how many pages should this white paper be? Oh, 3 pages. I was thinking 10. Do you have an example of a white paper that I could use that and model? Oh, yeah, yeah. I asked David to get the one I wrote on XYZ Corporation in 1978. So what happened? I was able to go home, have dinner with my wife. I was able to assign the research to one of my staff people who gave them plenty of time to do the research. And I was able to give the boss exactly what they expected before the client meeting. Now, before I said, whoa, if I hadn't have said, whoa, I would have called home, canceled dinner, upsetting me and my wife. I would have stayed up all night and delivered the next day a 10-page paper that would not meet my boss's expectations. Kind of a lose, lose, lose proposition. So that's where using your words, just saying whoa creates some space and time for you both to really think about what the expectations are. You're not saying no because type A personalities bristle at that.
Yeah, just kind of pumping the brakes a little bit there.
Yes.
Well, and I like how you did that because it really kind of puts things like, okay, let's look at what needs to be done, how soon, how much. You really are able to break it down then.
Hmm. I found with my customers, it's also important to set expectations. And I had a situation where a client wanted me to lead this huge multi-year project, and it was very doable. I would love to help them out, and it was October, and I said, there's just one thing. I'm talking to the CFO and the provost at the faculty lounge, and I said, I have this vacation in June to Australia. I want to take my wife and 2 boys. I was supposed to go last year, but I canceled it due to client needs. However, we bought the tickets, we had the passports, and I was an exchange student in Australia, so I missed our 25th high school reunion. I really need to take this trip in the summer. And they said, oh, that's fine, Brad. So we get to May and we're meeting with the president for the monthly meeting. And I said, Mr. President, just want to remind you, I'm going to be going to Australia for 3 weeks. Debbie will be in charge. And of course, I reminded him every month for the prior 4 months. And his hand started shaking. And I'm in slow motion canceling my vacation, kind of, whoa. And the CFO stopped me and said, Brad, hold on a second. And he said, Mr. President, the provost and I agreed that Brad could take this vacation when he joined us in October. I believe we should uphold our commitment. So the client was defending my vacation, and which was wonderful. Diane did a great job. I didn't check email or voicemail for 3 weeks. And 10 years later, we're having dinner with our spouses, the CFO and I, and we talked about this situation. And he goes, we were scared to death when you were gone.
I bet they were. My goodness, that's too much of a hoot. Oh my goodness. Well, and where do you think people really get hung up when it's their relationship with their boss or executive leaders?
I think with executive leaders, you need to prepare yourself for the time that will happen in your career. Probably not your first 1 to 5 years, but 5 to 10 years. There's a high probability that you'll be called upon to help executive leadership. To prepare for that, you need to have a wider perspective of your organization. And how do you do that? Well, you go to the website and study what the mission is. What is the purpose of the organization? Then you look at the vision. Where does executive leadership want to take the company or organization in 5 years? And then you look at their values and model those behaviors and understand those. So when you interact with executive leadership, you have a pretty good idea of what they're trying to achieve. And then you can offer whatever skills you have that can support them. So you have to do your homework.
Well, I think it's important. It shows that we're invested and we're really interested in what's happening.
Hmm.
So, I know in your book you talk about authentic business relationships. So, how do we know if the relationship we have, if they're authentic or not?
Well, there's a lot of talk in the business world about networking. And they tell you network, 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 but they don't actually explain how to do it. And it becomes very transactional. Go to this event, go to that event, get a stack of business cards. Yes, people still use business cards, but I rarely find that those have any traction over time. And you need to really step back and say, what are my most important business relationships, my most important customers? My boss is obvious, my direct reports. But you can't build an authentic business relationship with all your customers. You have to decide, you prioritize who are your best customers, because that repeat business is a lot more cost effective than trying to go out and find new people. So I just being more intentional and strategic about who you're spending your time with. And sometimes people say, "Oh, I don't have time for that. I don't have time to." You don't have time not to do it, because if you don't communicate with your customers or your boss, then the missed expectations will take you much longer to unravel.
Such great advice. And so we've talked about our supervisors, but how about our direct reports? I know you mentioned that. What does that relationship look like?
I start with asking them in the beginning of a relationship, what is going well with our organization? What could we do differently? If money was an issue, where would you invest? Um, where where do you want to be in 5 years? Do you want to be in my position as chief information officer, or are you interested in developing deeper technical skills? Either way, we can help build a career development program to get you where you want to get to. So I think getting their perspectives on how well things are going and then how they fit into that. And then you, as the boss, expressing your interest and support of helping them develop that, even if it means going elsewhere. Um, some people need to go to a different environment. Sometimes they come back stronger. So it's really helping them develop the way they want to develop.
So, Brad, in your book, you talk about internal spheres of influence. What are those?
Well, they relate to people you have the most direct impact with: your boss, executive leaders, your direct reports, and all your staff.
So, how important are those relationships and how can we cultivate them to just be better?
In essence, it's in your self interest to build relationships based on trust and reciprocity. It's a symbiotic relationship with your boss, with your direct reports, with all your staff. And there are really three parts or principles that play in all the business relationships: understanding their goals and aspirations, setting and managing expectations, and genuinely caring about their success. And frankly, it's just more rewarding and more fun.
It seems like a lot of times people are a little bit unclear about what their boss is asking of them. So, how do they gain clarity?
Well, uh, you need to ask. And it's surprising how many people don't ask or are afraid to ask. And it's usually well received. When I'm a boss and a direct report asks me what my goals are, what my aspirations are, what my pain points are, uh, I welcome that conversation because that shows they're a team player, and we can work together to achieve the goals that we're all trying to achieve.
Does it help for us to be very candid with our bosses?
Oh, absolutely. Honesty is is paramount. And sometimes your boss will ask you to do things that you may not be prepared to do. And you need to be honest and say that. Or maybe you don't have the skills to do the work. And taking a role and not being able to succeed is and not give your boss a heads up is worse than say declining the role and finding someone else who could do it better.
So, as an employee, should we really care about our boss's success?
Yes, because their success is based on the work that you do and your peers are doing. Your success is based on what you're doing and what your peers are doing. So it's absolutely imperative to know what their overarching goals are. And there are certain uh, guidelines you have to follow. For example, your time report should never be late. Your expenses should always be submitted on time. Your billing, if you're in a consulting world, the billing needs to be done on a timely basis. Evaluations for your direct report should be done on time, maybe even ahead of time. And just, don't create issues for your boss that are just unnecessary. It's really in your control.
And it seems a lot of times, there's this chain that happens. We have a boss, we report to them, they give us information, and then we have people that report to us. So, how do we effectively just be part of that really functioning piece within a corporation?
Well, you need to create a safe environment for your direct reports. You need to let them know that it's okay to raise issues. In fact, I always told my direct reports I want good news fast and bad news faster. So creating a safe work environment where they feel like they can do their jobs, you're not micromanaging them, and then sharing with them what the goals are of your goals and then what your boss's goals are. So you're really working as a team.
Is it important for us to articulate the organizational values with one another?
Yes, it's surprising that some organizations don't articulate their values, but most do. And if you're new to an organization, the first thing you should do is go to the website, find out about what the mission of the organization is, what the vision is, where are they trying to go, and then what are the values. And your values should align with those values. And so it's important to articulate those. If you're the boss, you need to continually remind not only your direct reports, but your entire organization that these are values that are important. So in an organization I ran uh, with 330 people, our top value is put family first. So I would say periodically in a weekly blog, we have 330 people in this organization. If you have a doctor's appointment, we'll cover for you. If you have a child in a school play, we'll cover for you. If you're sick, stay home, don't be a hero, we'll cover for you. And then I would actually exemplify those behaviors. So if I had a doctor's appointment, I would go. If I had school play, I would leave and go to the school play. So it's not only articulating the values, but exemplifying them.
Is it something that managers want to do when an employee comes up to them with a situation, a problem, that they just are there to help guide the employee to finding those answers to resolving those?
It's a collaboration. So sometimes I have direct reports coming to me with a problem they want me to solve. And when I ask, well, what options do we have to solve it? And they're looking at me to come up with all the answers, that's not fair. So I would set the expectation to my direct reports that, yeah, when problems arise, bring them to me, but just think through some options before you get here. Talk to your team because you guys are closer to the work than I am, and then make some recommendations. And at times it'll be they'll bring a problem about a dispute with a peer of theirs, another one of my direct reports. And my first question will be, well, what did they say when you talked to them? And I would repeat that until they would go talk to them. And often it got resolved without coming back to me.
Kind of teaching them to be the leaders that you know they can be.
Yep.
Well, on that note, we're going to pause here for a quick break. We've been speaking with Brad Englert in regards to his new book, Spheres of Influence: How to Create and Nurture Authentic Business Relationships. You've been listening to Moments with Mary Ann. We'll be right back after these messages from our sponsors.
Are you a coffee lover who wants to make a difference? Look no further than Fire Department Coffee, a veteran-owned business that gives back to support first responders in need. Each batch of coffee is freshly roasted right here in the USA by a dedicated team of first responders and coffee experts. So when you enjoy a cup of Fire Department coffee, you're not only drinking high-quality coffee, you're supporting members of your community. Start your day with a coffee that gives back. Visit firedepartmentcoffee.com. That's fire, D-E-P-T, coffee.com.
Hey, pay attention, everybody. Amy Vaughn and myself, Dutch Mendenhall, are hosting an event. Have you ever felt like the wealthiest in America play by a different rule book? Even if you earn well, make money, invest wisely, educate yourself, there is an invisible barrier. It separates you from the financial security enjoyed by America's elite. The economic landscape changes every day. The wealthy elite know how to stay ahead of it because we play by a different rule book. At InvestWell Summit, we'll share all the plays, and we're making it to win. Spots are going to sell out fast at InvestWell Summit, so get your butt to investwellsummit.com and secure your seat now.
There comes a moment when you realize you're somewhere special, when you discover that each beautiful creature that you see has been rescued from a life of absolute horror and brought to this incredibly free place. Here's where their lives were forever changed and where yours will as well. Discover over 500 tigers, bears, and lions at the brand new visitor center at the Wild Animal Sanctuary just outside Denver. For more information, visit wildanimalsanctuary.org. Discover true freedom at the Wild Animal Sanctuary.
Internationally recognized and award-winning author Judy Goodman works and teaches outside the box of limited thinking. Working with people from every walk of life, her goal is to empower you to be the best you can be, no matter what the challenge is. Born with the gift of seeing beyond our normal vision, she has an extraordinary gift of working with every challenge. Teaching beyond conventional wisdom, her work is described as life-changing. Visit judygoodman.com. That's judygoodman.com.
I'd like to thank Jason Eastwood at Guitarfulness for sharing his inspiring music and talent with us. His music is known worldwide for cultivating atmospheres of harmony, inner peace, and clarity. Visit Jason's website at guitarfulness.com. Join his newsletter, be part of his community, and download his music. Welcome back to Moments with Mary Ann. We're here today with special guest Brad Englert, who's here to share with us his new book, Spheres of Influence: How to Create and Nurture Authentic Business Relationships. So, how important is it that managers share that they care about their employees?
Well, in a large organization, as a leader of a large organization, um, using communication tools like um, a blog, which I wrote weekly for 8 years, where you can give kudos to staff who do great jobs. You can highlight goals for the future. You can apologize for mistakes the organization makes and say, here's what we're going to do to prevent that from happening. And talk about, you know, we do want you to build skills and get training. So in your annual discussions with your supervisor, lay out your training plan for the year and adhere to it. Don't cut training to save money or work more, because building skills will make you a better employee. So it's just articulating those. We would have orientation sessions for every new employee who came in, and all my direct reports would be there. They talk about their organization, the goals, and then we talk about the values of the organization. And every once in a while, someone would skip the orientation because they were, quote, too busy, but we would keep track. And it's like, well, you're coming to the next one because it's important to know what those values are. So just multiple modes of communication and reinforcement is a way to build that culture.
So, how about the relationship we have with our customers? Is that different at all?
No, really, it isn't. Customers have goals and aspirations. Customers need their expectations set, and they want you to genuinely care about their success. I had a state agency in the early 90s that all their inpatient facilities were paper. And our job was to implement an electronic medical record system. And in the first uh, facility, all the medical directors from the other 12 facilities worked with us to design the procedures, the training, et cetera. And after the first facility went live, very smooth, go live, all the other medical directors said, we're not waiting. We want to go faster. And we actually finished the project 6 months early because we knew what everyone's goals and aspirations were, which was to get rid of the paper and spend more time treating patients.
So, it's really having us be just more aware of what not only their goals are, but be sensitive to their interest and their timing.
That's right. And genuinely care about their success, not how much money you're making.
Yeah, and how you can really help move that business forward.
Hmm.
What are some of the things that people come to you the most for when you talk about just, being in spheres of influence?
No one comes when there are no problems, lots of time, and lots of money. So usually people approach you when there's some problems, challenges, not much time, and maybe budget issues. So it's really actively listening to try to understand what the situation is, what they're trying to get to, and then how can you tailor an approach that, and you collaborate with them on the approach that will get to the ultimate solution. And you can go through numerous options with them until you come up with a solution. But at the end of the day, it needs to provide much more value than any cost of your service.
Is it important for us to let them know that we care? And then how much? Because I know sometimes there could be some boundary considerations with that as well.
Absolutely. I think it has to be on a professional level. I would meet with my direct reports once a week in their office. So that would mean me walking across campus. And that's great because I bump into people, I bump into customers, I bump into executive leaders. And when I go into the direct reports workspace, their team sees me and I'm basically showing the flag and the support for their organization. But it needs to be on a professional level. And someone asked me, should you go out drinking with your direct reports? And I just didn't do that. We would celebrate success with pizza or barbecue, or tacos. We love tacos. Um, but I would maintain a professional relationship.
Do people tend to get in trouble when, like, expectations aren't really clarified?
Absolutely. It's probably the easiest thing to mess up. It's not knowing what the expectations are. And you might think, you have expectations for your boss, and they may think, you know, there's no way they can do that. So you have to have the dialogue. Um, Starting a big project, if I'm working with a customer, I get a one sheet of paper and say, here's the definition of what we're going to do, the scope of work, the timeline, the budget, who will be working on the project, how often we'll report back progress or raise issues to you. And that one pager sets the expectations. And then every time you meet, you align to those expectations. And I had one situation where it was a chancellor of a huge university system, all his direct reports. And by the end of the 6-month strategy project, it was unanimously endorsed because we brought them along all the way from the very beginning. And one thing we did, we said in the strategy, we're going to have so many pages for this and so many pages for that. And the chancellor goes, well, can I have 10 pages there? It's like, yeah, of course. Now, if we hadn't have asked, we might have delivered the report and he's saying, where's my 10 pages? But he had an opportunity to have his imprint on it.
So, when direct reports come to you with a problem, how do you manage that?
That's a great question. There's a classic Harvard Business Review story, I think from the mid 70s, which is hilarious because they talk about, typewriters and things like that. But the premise is that your employees have monkeys and they want to give you the monkey. And as the boss, if you accept all the monkeys, pretty soon you have all these monkeys on your back and they're leaving at 5 or going to the golf course. And so the advice of the writers were, if you are asked to take a monkey, you acknowledge it's a monkey and you hand it back to them. And that sets the expectation that you want them to come up with options to solve problems. Sometimes they have a problem with a peer of theirs. And the first thing I ask is, well, what did they say when you talked to them? And of course, they hadn't talked to him. And so they learned over time not to come asking for me to be their hero and rescue them, but for them to actually go and talk to the peer and work it out themselves. And that's more empowering and more rewarding. And they build strong relationships with their peers.
Do you encourage them to get out of the office and develop stronger relationships with clients too?
Absolutely. So um, when I started at the university, this professor who I worked with 15 years prior on a statewide network, crusty guy. And I said, okay, give me some advice. And he said, get out of the office and tell them you give a damn. And that was the best advice. So I would go and meet with my peers in the organization about every 6 weeks. Those I worked with more, I'd meet once a month, like campus safety and security. We had to really work together to make sure we were prepared when we needed to be. And that built this nervous system for me. But then I asked all my direct reports to do the same. So basically, every 6 to 4 to 6 weeks, we were meeting with 40, 50, 60 people across campus, and that was our nervous system. And it was really good because we could give them a heads up of things are coming. They could give us a heads up of major projects that are coming. Rumors, they would tell us, "Hey, I heard a rumor. The rumor is that you don't have enough diesel in your generators." Well, the generators are run on natural gas, so good rumor, but it wasn't true. But you're able to snuff those out immediately. So we actually called it a liaison program. And that's where if you have a regular cadence, just put it in your calendar. Um, that's the beauty of developing authentic business relationships. You don't have to be born with it. You just have to practice. And you practice by identifying intentionally who you should be working with, and then set up that cadence where um, you have the time. And it's a long play. You're there to help them be successful and you be successful.
So, for those business managers that are listening now, they're hearing this interview, they're going, "This is what our company needs." How do they start to implement this kind of, mid stride?
Well, you just have to start. If you read the book, it gives kind of a step by step approach of in each of these different arenas, um, how to proceed. And so, even if you've been in the role for a year or two or three, it's okay to start now and go ask your boss what their goals and aspirations are. Go ask your customers how are things going. Um, Make sure you're aligned with where they want to go and genuinely care. So I think they're very actionable to dos. At the end of every chapter, there's actually key takeaways that could be used as a framework for helping your team work together. In a review of my audiobook, which will be out in 2 weeks, um, one of the reviewers said, "I lead a team. I'm trying to build uh, better working relationships with them. I'm going to have your book, Spheres of Influence, be in our book club, and we're going to read it together and talk about it. And hopefully that'll help move us in the right direction."
Well, I can definitely see where this should be mandatory reading if anyone has a business, because it really does provide a roadmap to just have better relationships. And gosh, isn't that what business is all about?
Yeah. And it makes it more fun, to be honest. It isn't transactional.
What tips do you have for our listeners that they can take into their workplace today and start working themselves?
I would ask them to step back and look at their organization and create what I call a power map, which is, who are leaders in the organization. That's pretty easy on an organization chart, but they're also influencers who may not be high up on the chart, but they can help you navigate the organization, especially if you're new to an organization. And I had one influencer who was the chief of staff for the chief financial officer at a huge research one university. And they had worked together for 25 years. She was brilliant. She helped resolve um, financial resource issues throughout the campus. And I worked with her, and we helped transform the administrative side of the house. Well, I went to another very similar university and met with the chief of staff, and she goes, "Well, Brad, I've only been here a year and I'm doing kind of these small projects. I don't think you should waste your time meeting with me," which was perfect. Thank you. So just be intentional about where you need to invest your time.
In your book, I know you talk about offering apologies and being able to take accountability. How important is that?
Oh, it's very important. Um, it's Murphy's Law. Things will go wrong. And you need to ask yourself and your organization, how are you going to react when things go wrong? We have, at the university, we would have 2-year projects replacing all the telephones, to voice over IP. Well, that irritates everybody. So when things go wrong, how do you deal with that? We moved all the students and faculty to a new learning management system. Huge effort, took 2 years, about 1,000 ways things could go wrong, or maybe 10,000 ways, since we had 52,000 students. And working with another organization on campus, the academic side, we just worked together to help people get through those transitions, and they were successful. So I think just being prepared for when things go wrong, and apologize and take accountability helps build trust. And it's all about, you asked earlier about how do you know you're in an authentic business relationship? It's when you have trust with each other.
And Brad, for our listeners and business owners, I think this is what they need, which everyone does. I mean, your book is just remarkable. And they need more help. Are you available for consulting?
I am, and I am also virtually and as well as in person. I did help a regional liquor store chain with an IT strategy, and the customers love the company. It's family owned, and the customers wanted a mobile app and delivery, and they wanted me to help them implement it. I said, well, I need to write this book, but I'll find someone who can help you. And a woman who used to work for me built Dell.com back in the late 90s, built a medical marijuana site in Canada. So it's a controlled substance over the web. And she got 40 stores up and running on a mobile app with delivery and website. And then the pandemic hit. And they were able to keep their business going, and then expanded from 40 stores to 100 stores. And all through the pandemic, I was able to test it every 2 weeks to make sure it worked. I'm also working on a half-day workshop that I could, actually have some exercises where we go through each of these areas and let people practice in person.
Well, that sounds exciting. Brad, where can our listeners connect with you and be part of your community and learn more about your work?
I have a website, bradenglert.com, and I'm on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and I have some videos on YouTube, some 5 funny stories that I think they'd appreciate, and a book trailer so you can get a feel for what's in the book. But I would start with bradenglert.com.
Well, Brad, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, thank you, Brad. It has been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new book, Spheres of Influence: How to Create and Nurture Authentic Business Relationships. Spheres of Influence is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers. And remember, support our indie bookstores. If you don't see it on the shelf, just ask for them to order it. Make sure to reach out to Brad on his website at Brad Englert. That's Brad, ENGLERT.com. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Mary Ann, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Mary Ann is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary. A recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Marianne will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmarianne.com for more information.